Okay, this game. I would love to talk about Rising Sun. Now, Jacob, why are you talking about Rising Sun? That's a great question, Jacob. So, I want to talk about this because it's been out for almost a year. I think it came out in February. I think that's when backers got it of this year. And it was great. Everyone was talking about it. Opinions were all over the place. It was really great. I loved it. But I want to talk about it now, these months later, to see how it's holding up. Now, Rising Sun is a game by Eric Lang with art by Adrian Smith and published by CMON. This is the second game in, I think, a trilogy of games by that collective. I'm going to call them a collective. First one being Blood Rage. Excuse me. And in this game, it is an area control game where you are managing your faction on the map and you are able to collect cards that give you monsters and abilities, and you're able to move, and each faction has a different set of abilities to help you gain control of the area. Hence, it is an area control game. And you are also trying to make alliances, and it's also action selection. And the actions available to you are your basic foray of actions for area control games. You've got move, you've got recruit, you've got others that I can't think of, but just think of actions you want to do, and they're available. Harvest, all of them.
Seppuku.
Yes. Well, that's in the battle, and all these actions are going up to a battle phase where you will battle in, depending on how many players, like 5 to 8 areas in the board. And you know which areas are going to be fought over in what order. And at the end of the game, the bulk of your points are going to come from the variety of areas that you have controlled. So if you have I think it's 3 to 4 different territories, you get 10 points, 5 to 6, or 4 to... Anyway, that's endgame scoring, is the variety of areas you control. If you want to hear more about this, or if you haven't heard about it recently, go check it out. There's a swath of media covering this because it was a hugely popular game. But I played this game again. I brought it back to the table. I had 6 of us at my most recent game night. And when there's 6, this is kind of my go-to game for 6 players because it is fantastic. And it still is fantastic. This game creates a lot of emotion, and people are invested in this game because what people are doing are going to affect you throughout the entire game. So there really is no downtime. There can be, I guess, if you are disconnected from what's happening, but this game tends to be very engaging still to this point. And people are still loving it as well. This is probably, honestly, in the past 8 or so months since it's come out, I think we've probably played it 4 or 5 times. And I've played it at 3, 4, and 6. I haven't played it at 5, but 3, 4, and 6. And I think 6 players is just... It's just a fantastic game at 6. It does hold up still. And it's a game where every time I do play it, I want to play it more. Now, I do understand people's criticism of the game where they advertised it, or they're pushing it as a negotiation game. And to some extent, yeah, it can be a negotiation game, but that's not really the focus of it for me. I think the focus for me is just trying to... vie for a position. I guess there can be a negotiation, like, hey, don't attack here, but I'll move my people here type thing. But it's still just a very, very engaging game. When was the last time you've played this game?
It was a long time ago. I've only played the game once, unfortunately. And again, I'm in the cult of the new, so a lot of the new stuff that does come out usually gets onto the table. So I haven't played it, but again, it's one of those games where absolutely, if people were like, I want to play Rising Sun, I'd be like totally down for it. I have the Kickstarter version, and the Kickstarter version is amazing quality. Which, do you have that version? I'm presuming you do, right? I think a lot of people do.
I do. I don't have the expansion, which I regret not backing the expansion, and that's something that I totally want. I did get the sweet neoprene mat, though, which is... At first, I was like, this is completely superfluous, but it's so beautiful, and it's big, and it's thick, and it's threaded on the outside. It's just such good quality.
Yeah, it's really weird because I got it and was immediately kind of... It was like blown away in a bad way, where I was like, oh, this is kind of a little bit overboard. But then when you play on it, it makes a lot of sense, and now there's like no reason for me to actually play on the player board.
Exactly, especially with 6 players. At the higher player counts, the bigger space.
Yeah, the bigger
completely
space.
Worth it. Yeah.
That's really cool that you got 6 people to play with you. I don't have 6 friends, so.
Hey man, if you try to be more happy, I think you'd have more friends.
So I have a question for you about this.
Yeah.
We played this game at 4. And what happened in our game was that so this game kind of plays over 3 phases, much like Blood Rage. And then on like the 4th phase, you end the game. And at the beginning of each of these different phases, you have to like, essentially, if you want to, you can ally yourself by putting your little part of the yin and yang together. And you become allies for that round, or you can break off, what have you. In our game, we had the same 2 people always be allies every single time, which then caused us to, the other, myself and the other person to be allies, which kind of felt like, like it wasn't supposed to happen. Like you're kind of supposed to mix and match allies, maybe, to a certain extent. How did that for a 6-player game work out for you guys?
Honestly, it's about the same. And I think this goes back to people's complaints where it's not really a negotiation game where you're trying to convince people to become allies with you. Mm-hmm. The benefit of having an ally is that the action that you choose, your ally gets a benefit as well, like a fraction of that action. That's a cool line. A fraction of that action. I'm
wow, what an indie CD. Write that note down.
Seriously, write it down. But it's the same thing. Like, yeah, sure, we'll be allies, and maybe we just aren't good at the game. There is one person who may go twice in a round, so they may have more power to be like, hey, ally with me, because I'm going to go twice this round. Mm-hmm. And we can have those benefits. But I don't know, like that really doesn't bother me. I think it's all about expectations too. I wasn't expecting a heavy negotiation game. I wasn't really expecting that. I was expecting beautiful miniatures. I loved Blood Rage so much. I wanted something similar to that, but not exactly like that. And so that's the expectation I had going in, and that's, I think my expectations were met. I'm just glad I brought it back out. This has been part of my effort of playing my collection and going back to these games that I put in a pretty penny. Right, this wasn't a cheap game,
no,
but completely worth it. And it just feels good to kind of play through my collection, which has been something I've wanted to do for a while, to suppress that cult of the new, which still fights every single day.
Every day.
Every day. But yeah.
So, okay, going back again to kind of the same alliances that come up and again.
Yeah.
Coming out of each game saying that you want to be able to replay and replay and replay, what are you changing over every play that, you come out of one game and say, okay, this happened and I'm going to change my style this way. Like, what's kind of the biggest takeaway that you take from each game that you're trying to reapply to every other game?
I don't know. I think that's a great question. I don't really analyze my gameplay. I don't really try and win games. Like, I don't set that out as a goal for playing a game, which I know sounds backwards. I did come in a close second. If I would have won one more territory, I would have won. Mm-hmm. So I do try and win, but that's not really my goal.
Yeah.
And so I don't really analyze things like that. I think what brings a lot of replayability for me in this game, though, are the different factions. I mean, I have 6 different factions without the expansion box. And I just kind of play a different faction each time. And really, if I play this game 6 times with that many people, I feel like I've totally got my money's worth, and it's one that can come out. It's easy to teach. It's easy to get back into. Mm-hmm. I did not have to reread the rules, and it's probably been 4 months since I've played. They did a great job with the back of the rule book to kind of go over a few things. I think we had to check a few nitpicky rules, but it didn't like disturb the flow of the game.
Sure.
So I think that's where the replayability goes. For me, I'm trying more to focus on if people are having fun. Mm-hmm. People are taking time away from their families to come spend time at my house.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that they're having a good time. So I make sure that people are, that's my focus. So
you and I have a very similar stance on gaming, where it's not that I don't want to win, but I'm more concerned that everyone at the table is having fun.
Yeah, exactly.
We had a discussion in our earlier episode, whether it was did we discuss Rising Sun at all?
We did in our very first inaugural test episode.
Oh, was it really?
I feel like it. Yeah.
So in that episode, we talked about what would be like out of this trilogy of games, right, that supposedly is happening, what would be the third game in this trilogy? So we
Oh
have,
yeah.
we have the Vikings, we have the feudal Japan. So what would theoretically be the next Eric Lang dudes on a map area control themed game? Like just the theme. Let's not talk about mechanics at all. I think you can
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
get it's going to be some sort of variation, right? And
Mm-hmm.
what's really interesting too, right, is think about that The Godfather came in between of Blood Rage
Yeah.
and Rising Sun. And that was almost, I feel like, a 1.5 to both Blood Rage and to Rising Sun to a certain degree. It's like an offshoot of it that didn't quite
Mm-hmm.
work, but felt like it could work in its own retail release, which unfortunately, due to sale prices, you can kind of tell it hasn't been doing too well in the
Mm-hmm.
game stores, unfortunately. But I'm just kind of wondering, given the games that have come out, what could we be like? What could we be seeing?
Oh, okay. Here's a cool idea. Uh, so Blood Rage ended up being like a spiritual successor to Chaos in the Old World.
Okay.
It would be great if you could bring that game back and maybe soup it up a bit and make that the third one to kind of come full
Full
circle
circle.
with it. I love that game. It is a fantastic game. Now, I'm not sure what theme he could use. Did you ever play that game, Chaos in the Old World?
Nope. Heard a lot about it, but I've not played it.
So it's fantastic, and ultimately it is a very similar game where instead of cards being drafted in your hand like Blood Rage, each faction is completely different, but you're playing cards onto each area that's affecting that area. And so it's super unique, it's super fun, but it's one that it takes a dedicated group of players to really get into the meat of that game, and I never unfortunately did that. So it's on my shelf with the Horned Red expansion. I've only played it like once, but that's the game I would love to kind of get back into with the same group, much like I'm doing with Root, playing that every other week,
Yeah.
over and over again. And so I think if you could find a good theme and bring those elements back into it, I think that would be sweet. I think that would be super.
So
fun.
like a remake of Chaos in the Old World, but maybe
Mm-hmm.
themed in their own way outside of Blood
Yeah.
Rage. I mean, could you consider Blood Rage being that?
I think he could do the card placement onto the area thing again.
Okay.
I think he could revisit that, and I think it would be fantastic.
I have a feeling it's going to be in space. Like that's just
Oh my gosh.
Like I just have this whole like space thing that
I mean,
they've been doing. Project Elite
makes
coming
sense.
out. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like that's been kind of a strong theme. I think Western is actually getting to be very in right now, which was under, I think, appreciated. I could see it being like some sort of like space Chaos in the Old World, Warhammer, that whole take on it, because I doubt it. What was the CMON? Oh, it was Night of the Living Dead. That was the CMON IP that they
Oh yeah.
recently got.
Yeah.
Where they're now, getting Zombicide to be in Night of the Living Dead, which I'd be interested in checking out. But
Oh yeah. That's cool.
yeah. So I don't know. That's kind of my take on it. Something in space,
And that makes sense. I mean, they did
Starcadia.
Starcadia Quest. They did Zombicide in Space, which one was Invader, right?
Yeah.
So it would make sense. I think they could do a really great job.
Sure, or something in the future too, because maybe that was too much spacey things. Who knows though? All right, I don't know. It's CMON. Usually
Ooh.
anything kind of backs within a half an hour for them now these days. Not
That's true.
as fast as Rising Sun. Rising Sun broke Kickstarter. I don't think we've had a Kickstarter
Oh
do
my
that
gosh.
recently.
That's
so.
true. Cyberpunk could be really cool, especially with like Cyberpunk 2077 coming out.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called. That Project Red game.
Guaranteed, there's going to be a board game for that
seems
too.
pretty
By the
great.
way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a
and
shoe-in.
hopefully, I mean, Fantasy Flight did one for The Witcher,
Yeah.
and I mean, it wasn't great, but it would be cool if they could take that IP and make something fun out of it. Anyway, overall, I'm super happy with playing Rising Sun again. It's a game that I definitely want to keep in my collection, to just keep bringing out every few months or so. The group I play with enjoys it. It's a long game. I mean, it takes us 3 hours to play a 6-player game, but it is 3 hours of ecstatic joy. And that's Rising Sun by CMON and Eric Lang and Adrian Smith.